What's up, guys? 415, Issue 4 by Anthony Morman. Before I get going, if you could, just go ahead and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth reviews such as this, or some of my quicker reviews such as Off the Cuff. And if you would, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. I would certainly appreciate that. So we pick up where we left off. Joan is still asleep, and we get to see what she's dreaming about here. We get more info on her past. We see that she was in and out of foster care. She's having trouble making friends, which it tends to be what they say for kids in foster care because they're moving around. So I totally buy that she's having trouble making friends. And she's getting bullied by other children. One such bully is a girl named Nancy. Now, Nancy's a bitch. Nancy found out about Joan's past and did some of the fucking most vicious shit I've ever seen. So, Joan's mom did the thing with the face, right? Shaving off pieces of her face. Well, Nancy figured this out and decides to take like little cut up pieces of meat and chuck them at Joan. What a bitch, And not only that, but she also referred to her dad as a floater. And it just, some really nasty stuff. So Nancy is an ongoing bully, and at one point she pushes Joan to a point where Damon, or who I've been referring to as the big guy, now needs to go ahead and tap in and take care of business. And so Joan goes ahead and puts these girls in the hospital, and this gets the doctors to separate Joan from Jason and Damon by way of medication, or as they referred to it as vitamins. And so then Joan was all alone again, at least until she found a sister by the name of Angel. And those two were at least adopted into what looked like a loving family. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that these people sucked ass. That's we're kind of led to believe that not everything was all hunky-dory with these two foster parents. So we'll see what happens, hopefully in the next issue, or, maybe in issue 6, somewhere down the line. So after reliving their past in the dreams, from the looks of it, Joan wakes up suddenly as if from a nightmare. So again, kind of lead me to believe that some real heinous shit went on with this foster family. But we'll see. She then, realizes, okay, everything's good, goes back to sleep, and Jason and Damon then are out and about. And they start talking with one another. We do get kind of a quick glimpse of Jason's capabilities. He looks like he's at least kind of like a hacker, for lack of a better term. At least very intelligent, can work his way around computer systems. And then these two are kind of arguing between one another, and it comes to a boiling point, and violence breaks out between the two. And we see Damon goes ahead and he picks up Jason and throws him against the wall. Joan wakes up on the floor, possibly because of the fight. Not 100% certain on that one. I'm assuming so, just from the way things are laid out. And Jason also made note before he got thrown that there are consequences for the two of those, for those two to be fighting. So I'm assuming that that had something to do with why Joan was on the floor. She goes in and walks over to the mirror, and we see she is just sweating profusely. And the butcher comes at like the large um, viewing glass, kind of like what you would see at like a zoo or an aquarium or something like that. You know, just a large view for the doctors and the caretakers to monitor the patients. And he comes over there, wants to taunt her, be a real prick about everything. He comes over and says, will you be my Valentine? And shows him like a real human heart. And she blacks out again. Joan wakes up again, but this time it's from a noise coming from across the hall, and this is where we meet patient 350, or Bethany, if you want to actually put a human name to her. Or in this case, Bethany's, because 2 out of the 3 that we see are fighting one another. Now, this was the redhead I did make note of in episode 3. I was kind of curious as to how this all went, and I'm glad that we do get an explanation as to who she is. Because 2 of them are fighting while one of them reads. The 2 fighters crash into the other one, and they immediately kind of freak out about it. And they're like, "Oh shit!" They fucked up and they know it. And the one reading gets up, immediately absorbs the first fighter, and then introduces herself as 315 to Joan, who now sees her. They're making eye contact, and it's like, oh, Bethany is a real interesting character, because as she's absorbed one of the fighters, you start to see that she's taking on all the damage that one sustained with the other, from the other fighter, rather. She then explains to Joan that the only reason she's in the East Wing is that they find her useful and abnormal. So, something to offer the facility. That's the only reason why she's in the East Wing. Before Bethany can absorb her other duplicate, for which she explains to this duplicate, hurts like a bitch, and is basically like reverse childbirth. Mary pops in, or as Bethany refers to her as 520. Mary shows concern to what Bethany is doing by rejoining with her injured copies. Bethany absorbs the last one and tells Mary to go meet Joan as she's like, grimacing in pain. It's taking a toll on her. And it definitely looks like it hurt like a bitch. Mary then reappears not once, not twice, but 3 times now in Joan's room. She tells Joan that they are more or less experimental guinea pigs, and that the numbers to them have meaning. 520, for example, means she is in group 5 and subject 20. They have also attempted an escape, but were stopped by 3 individuals. Now, I want to stop right there and make note of one of these individuals. Looks pretty familiar. I'll get to more of that later. These 3 killed all but Mary, which may have something to do with Yennison and the Butcher. So speaking of the Butcher and Yennison, we transition over to them real quick as they are entertaining themselves with other guests. And though it's a brief panel or a couple panels that we see with them, we at least get information that Yennison at least had a serious relationship, if not married, to Mary. Or at the very least, somebody who looked a whole lot like her, which may explain why she lived while the others died. Okay, so we're done with them. We check back over, and we're looking at Manic, who is now sitting outside of Bethany's window, and wants to taunt her, and during this whole taunting process, we do find that, in fact, the reason why those two look so much alike is they are duplicates of one another. I don't know who the main one is, but we do see later as Manic rejoins with Panic at the elevator. Um, Bethany didn't take kindly to all the taunting, and now um, she has a bloody lip and a black eye as she regroups with Panic there. So Panic and Manic, try and say that real fast, they go to the doctor's office and he informs them that they have lost another patient. I'm just going to make note of it real quick just in case it's important later on. This is patient 720. He then instructs Panic to put Joan through the trials, and Manic and Panic agree that Manic is a better fit for the job. Told you, this is going to be tough going through Manic and Panic. The doctor disagrees. He tells Panic to make room for Joan the next day and tells Manic that if she continues to visit Bethany, he's going to throw her in with Bethany. And we see what happens if Bethany touches one of her duplicates. We then follow Panic as he gathers Jacob for testing. On their way, he passes Joan's window and she pleads for her lawyer and that they just can't keep her there. For which he is more or less replies like, "Want to bet? I can do whatever the hell I want. Shut up." But then also follows this by letting her know that he'll be seeing her tomorrow. Mary comforts Jones and tells her about Jacob. He survived the testing the longest, and we see that Mary can go to all these other patients' rooms, but he can't talk because he's usually muzzled. So we don't know how and why he is surviving all of these. We then finish our story with the butcher, or Patchwork as we now know his real name, so to speak, is. Comes down the hall, he passes by Mary's room and says he misses you. Clear indication to me that Yenneson and Mary were a couple. It's not just a girl that looks like Mary. He then stops at Joan's room and says it's too bad that she's not scheduled with him tomorrow. To which Damon and Jason, in unison, both just go, "Fuck." Now, I don't know what they mean by this exactly. I'm like, okay, is it fuck that it's not the butcher? Or fuck she's going in tomorrow? Not entirely certain as to what we're getting out of this one. I don't know if Panic having this one is the worst case scenario and Butcher is actually the better, despite how he looks, or what have you. And I'm really curious to figure out why this is a big ordeal. My guess is that it's more or less fretting over the whole trials as is. But yeah, that's where the story ends for this time. So I just want to touch on some theories. I don't really have any subplots going on, so we're just going to touch on some of the theories that I have. First thing I want to do is the theory I had previously about everything at her job being in her head. That seems to be debunked based on a conversation Panic had with the doctor when he referenced Mr. Heath himself. So it looks like everything that happened in 2 and then 3, that all looks like it did happen. So that did get debunked. I do believe that Jason / Joan is that third member Mary was talking about who stopped all the escapees. That mask is a mask that was worn by Jason in, I believe it's the 3rd issue where we see him. So I'm pretty sure that has something to do with their previous apparently visit there. And that also ties into my last thing here, where all the patients seem to have connections with the doctor and company. Um, Bethany and Manic, Mary and Yennison. I'm not 100% certain where Joan fits on this one, but it does appear as though she was like the third member with Manic and Panic. Um, so they all seem to be connected in some way, shape, or form. So I'm just going to touch on some of the like new characters that we got introduced to real quick. We have Bethany, or 350. Um, she's been a patient here since early childhood and is able to self-replicate, basically kind of create her own small army there. We have Mary, who looks to be in a coma, as we see at the end. Um, was married to, if not just in a serious relationship with Yennison, and she's able to project her uh, conscious form into physical manifestations into other people's rooms. So we didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with them, but we have Jacob, or 650. Uh, Very little known about him. We know he's the longest surviving member there. Not certain as to how he's getting around, and he can't speak because he's constantly muzzled. We did get to see him unmuzzled while he was going through like trials or being beaten up, at least roughed up. And the only words we got from him were eat and drink. Not 100% certain. I'm just making note of that because it may play some role down the line. Alright, so I just want to touch on some of the things I really liked in this. Um, I like, again, the expanding world and more interesting clues on characters like Yennison and Mary, Bethany and Manic, and we get more of Joan's like backstory continuing on. Looks like she's been through hell. We already know that just from issue 1, and then some more shit goes down in issue 2. So it's a girl who's been put in a very difficult situation. Um, I do like that my criticisms that I had with 1, 2, and 3 um, have all been removed. Um, it's a decent length book, and there was no like filler panels in the front like in 3. So we're making progress. I like to see that. Everybody's evolving. I like this. Um, Again, I'm still invested with these characters. I want to know more about Joan. I want to know more about uh, Mary and her relationship in with Yennison. I want to know more about both good characters and bad alike. The Doctor, he's still he's my less interested character at this point. Because I mean, we don't spend a whole lot of time with him. He just pops in and out as he's needed. I don't dislike him. I'm very interested with Manic and Panic and uh, Butcher and Yennison. So we have a lot of really good characters, um, and I like learning more about them. And lucky for me, there's the Yennison one-off, which I'll be covering next. So I'm excited to read that. Not really anything for me to critique. Um, Maybe just a few art panels look a little off, but I don't like to judge art because I feel it's a little too subjective. As far as the story is concerned and how everything's fitting together, I didn't find anything offhand, so this is pretty good. Um, I If you ask me, this is probably the best one in the series so far. Hard to say. They've all been very interesting in their entirety. So I'm since we've started, I've become less depressed, like I was with the first issue, and more invested in seeing where this all is going. What are they doing? What's the trials? All the backstory. Um, so I'm definitely in. I know um, the second more issues come out, I'm going to be in on it, and I think everybody else should too, especially if you like psychological thrillers, things like that. Um, I think it's well worth the investment, and I will I will put in the description where you can buy this. So um, go ahead and give it a look out and see what you think. So I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. Appreciate all of your views. And again, if you liked what you saw, go ahead and give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you would. I would certainly appreciate that. And until next time, take care and God bless.